Right. Welcome back to This Is Your Mind on AI. My name is Chris Mercer. Everybody here calls me Mercer, and you are invited to as well. Today, this live stream's actually been inspired by community members, which is awesome. So thank you again for participating in the community. By the way, if you have not subscribed, if you have not liked, if you've not commented, if you've not gone in the community and posted and all that other stuff, don't do that yet. This may not be useful for you. And I really am asking you to not share, not like, not subscribe. Even if you've heard about this stuff and you're like, oh, I want to have more of it, don't do it for that reason. I want you to go through this experience, make sure it's useful. And if it is, and only if it is, please, then like, subscribe, comment, post in the community. You know, we've got back on YouTube and everything else. And that is because when you do that, you're telling the algorithm, of course it's going to send you stuff because that's what they tell us it does. But what you're really telling the algorithm is, I want more people like me in this community. Right? You want more people like you in this community, more people having conversations like this in this community. And that's why I want you to do that stuff at that point. All right. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about something that a community member came to me a couple of days ago, and I had a conversation with him, and it was just kind of back channeled, which was fine. And I did ask him to put this public in the community, and he hasn't yet, but it stuck with me. And so I'm just going to do it anyway. At first I was going to do it like, hey, put it in the community, and then I'll show how you're putting it in the community and get more people to do it publicly. But honestly, I don't care how you get to me. Like, just get it to me and I will help you out. So that's what I'm doing here. So now his question was, how do I solve a problem with AI? Which is a really good question. It's a generic question, but it's really, really good. Because how do you solve a problem with AI? You've probably already been trying to solve problems with AI. And there's reasons that might feel like it's working, and there's reasons like it might not. And so I thought, well, let's use Leap, and we'll use the gem, and we'll go through it, and I'll show you, showing him, so him right now that's watching, you can see it. But the real reason is to show you how to do this as well, as I'm doing it, so you can model it and kind of play around with it. So where do we get all this? Well, we're going to go into thisisyourmindonai.com. All of you can do this now, right? You want to do this right now, so you can pull this stuff up and do exactly what I do. So you haven't done it already. So this is, by the way, a channel that is not about the content, though obviously content is streaming through you right now. It's about participation. This is a different type of channel. This is one of those channels that's more of an experience that you have to experience and play with and participate with and actually start having some fun with, right? So by the way, I'm always looking at these little things up here, which is really cool because as the channel starts to spread and word starts to spread about this particular thing, I'm seeing more of those pop up, and I would love to see those over time. Just having lots of anonymous people back here. It's kind of the reason I like keeping it as a Google Doc, just because you can kind of see that and be like, oh, look, there's so much people experiencing this. And then once it outgrows a Google Doc, because I think eventually there's going to be too much here, and then we'll maybe move it to a regular website. But for now, Google Docs. Anyway, here's what you're going to do. We're going to click on here. We're going to the Leap gem. Right? For those that don't know what that is, this is a gem that's essentially been set up already because there's a certain way to operate AI. You can watch any of the other live streams and I'll demonstrate all that. If you really want to go down the rabbit hole, you can. We also have a community over at automatedwith.tech that you can join. It's also free, where it really goes down the rabbit hole of how to do this thing we call latent experience prompting. But that's not what we teach here, right? I have live streams there. For those that want them, they're there. But this is more for those of you who are just trying to get through life. And it's like, how do I get through life with AI in a better way? Maybe, is there a way that AI can help us? Is there a way that we can use technology to make things easier for ourselves instead of constantly twisting ourselves into higher and higher knots? And unfortunately, I think with AI, there's a lot of us that are twisting ourselves up in knots, and we don't necessarily know it. So I wanted to show how you can use this gem, this Leap gem, which again is free, because you can click on the link, it'll come right over to your Gmail account. All you need is a free Gmail account. You don't have to pay for anything. And we're going to start from here. So I'm starting in the exact same place that you are, but I'm going to operate this a little differently, right? I'm going to give a little bit of a different style prompt, because the question that I got a couple days back was, well, how do you use this to solve problems with AI? And so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to use it in a way to create kind of a skeleton key so that we can kind of see if I can use AI. And I don't know that I can, but here's what I'm trying to experience. This is my personal experience, by the way, but I'm trying to do it in a way so that you also get to experience at least something where you go like, oh, I see what's going on now. And then you either get it, which it works, which is awesome, or you get enough of it where you're like, I know how to make this work for me, right? That's kind of what we're trying to do here. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give, now this is what I call latent experience prompting, but this is a style of a prompt, and I'm going to explain it as I go through it. Or actually, well, I'll give it first, then I'm going to explain what I did. Then I'm going to hit, and then I'm going to explain what I think is about to happen. And then we're going to see what happens. And I'm going to constantly do that so you can see, here's what I'm prompting. Here's why I'm prompting it the way that I did. Based on that, here's what should happen. Now let's go see if it happened. And then I'll prompt and we'll repeat the process so that you can kind of play along. All right. Remember, all about participation. This is not a channel you just watch and be like, oh, that was interesting, because what's the point of that? There's plenty of that other crap on YouTube. Go there. If you just want to be entertained, this is not a channel. If you want to change your world, this is the channel. But you have to participate. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Let me get my mic ready, make sure I've got that turned on. I think I do, maybe not. Always make sure that is there. All right, and then we should, I'm going to do a quick little test here. Check, check, check. Check, test, test. Perfect. Okay. All right, here we go. I've been thinking about how to use AI to solve problems because in the past, I guess I've been trying to use AI to solve problems. It seems to make sense that AI, that doesn't work. Let's try this one more time. I've been using AI to try to figure out how to solve the problems that I have. And so I'll have a problem with AI and I'll try to describe what's going on and I'm trying to solve the problem, whatever it is. It kind of doesn't matter. This is more generic to how to solve problems with AI. But I'm trying to figure out how to do it better because there's something off in my strategy because it's like, let's say I'm trying to figure out how to write an email. I will go to it and say, okay, well, here's what I want you to do. And here's what I want the email to be able to accomplish. And I'm trying to describe the results that I want the email to maybe have, and then I'll get an email back, like it'll write copy and it'll give me this email back, but it's almost like I still see the problem in it somehow. I still sense that there's a problem there where it's like, it's an email, but it's phoned in, I guess, for lack of a better feeling. It just kind of feels like it's a better version of what I wanted, but it's not, or it's a better version of what I have, but it's not the version I wanted. So I still have the problem. And that seems to happen over and over and over again. So like, let's take another example. Let's say I'm trying to think through how to just not be so stressed in life because I can get really stressed and there's a lot, to be honest, to be stressed about. This isn't crap. This isn't me making stuff up. There's a lot. I have money issues and I'm stressed about that. There's relationship issues and I'm stressed about that. I beat myself up all the freaking time because I'm not good enough and I'm stressed about that. And yet I know that that's a problem I have and then I need a solution for. So I work with AI on it and I start to feel better and it starts to move things forward, but it doesn't get rid of the problem. It just makes it less apparent, I guess, or less noticeable, maybe, is kind of what I'm thinking is going on. Now, notice I'm not always looking at the screen, so this thing stopped listening to me, which happens, no big deal. This is just how I do it. The other thing you can do, I have done this, by the way, especially if I'm walking around and I'm not live streaming, I will use a phone and I'll record it in the background separately too, so I have the complete version in case it times out or whatever. But in this case, no big deal. All I'm gonna do is, this is really recording my transcript so I can see where I was, right? So it's a lot to be stressed out, making stuff up, have money issues, stressed about that, the relationships, stressed about that. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna take all of that. I'm just gonna Control X because I'm on a PC. This kind of puts it in the clipboard for me and I'm gonna continue because that's gonna give me back my microphone button. So remember, when you push something in Gemini, the microphone button comes off. So I'm just erasing everything in here so the microphone button's back on and I'm gonna continue as if that other piece is there and I'm just gonna add it back in at the top. All right, so that's how we're gonna do this. All right, so let's make sure it's in there. It is perfect, okay. All right, it definitely wasn't a gem that was deleted. Let's try this again. One more time. What's happened? This is the first time that's happened. Did somebody just delete the gem? Because I sure didn't, because, all right, I'm not sure why that's doing that. There might be a little weird issue with Google right now, which again, is gonna happen. I'm not gonna freak out, but it's really funny that it happens to be a problem right now. So I'm gonna try to get back in the gem just this way. Let me just reload the page. Maybe it just signed me out. Let me just make sure, maybe it signed me out. It did sign me out, I apologize. This is what happened. I couldn't see it because I was looking. I actually, when I broadcast, look at the screen that you're looking at. So we're both looking at the same thing. I just need to sign back in again. So give me just a second to sign in. That's exactly what happened. So I'm going to bring this over to me so I can get signed in really quickly. And that occasionally happens. No big deal. Ironically enough, I had literally just signed in before the stream, but it happens. Okay. Notice, by the way, how I'm handling all of this. This is live, no net, recorded forever. Yay! Okay. Let's try this one more time. I'm going to go back into the gem. The gem should be there now. That's all it probably was it just sign me out? No, I'm back. Okay, here's the lead. All right. Here's all the extra stuff I put in there. We're back where we started. No big deal. We're just flowing through, trying to solve problems with AI as we are experiencing problems trying to do that. There's already kind of a model there, I think, for you. It certainly is for me. And I absolutely may not have experienced this the same way a year ago. All right, let's try this again. So I'm keeping up with, I want to make sure where I was. So stressed out about money, stressed about relationships, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. And these are real world issues. They're observable, they're real, they're not made up, they're not a fantasy, they're actually happening. I'm getting people telling me they're happening. I know they're happening. I can see it in the bank statement, for example. I can see it in that person's eyes that I have a challenge with trying to reach. It doesn't matter, they're real. And so I know because they're real, they need to be solved because they're problems that are so obvious to me that have to be solved. So I was thinking, great, let's go to AI because AI supposedly is this database that knows everything. It's got all a human connection. So all I need to do is go to AI and say, hey, AI, can you please help me solve my problem? Here's what the problem is. What is the solution? It's kind of like, hey, my problem is 2 plus 2, and I don't know what 2 plus 2 is. So give me the solution. And you would say 4, which makes sense. But for some reason, it's not working. It's like, I can describe everything and I can kind of give you that one side, like my side of what's going on, but then AI's coming back and again, it's weird because it feels at the moment that things are moving forward and I keep moving things forward, but at the same time, I still have the problem. So I feel like I'm not actually doing anything, but it does feel like I'm making progress. And I don't know if I'm digging my own hole here. Like eventually, do I just keep doing that? And the more that I iterate conversations and keep doing that and keep trying to solve my problem and keep trying to describe my problem in different ways, or, oh, okay, well, now here's what the problem is now. And I just kind of go next problem, next problem, next problem. But again, I'm just experiencing a whole lot of problems. And the whole point of this is I do not want to experience problems because why would I want to experience a problem? And maybe I'm trying to just figure out how I can just see solutions and not see all the problems everywhere. Because if I just saw what the solutions were, if I just saw the obviousness of the solution, I wouldn't have a problem. So, and here's what I'm thinking. Like when I wake up in the morning, I obviously know it's a good idea to get up and I obviously want coffee. And I obviously know I will grind the coffee beans and make some coffee. And then I'm gonna have some coffee. And some days it's obviously useful that I'm gonna go outside and go out for a walk. Some days it's not. Some days I'm just out in the backyard enjoying my coffee. Some days it's just inside and maybe I'm watching Netflix. But I don't think about those as problems that I have to solve. I don't wake up in the morning and be like, what's the problem I have to solve this morning with my coffee? I don't see that. I just see the solution of coffee and the solution of Netflix and the solution of whatever that I might be doing. Maybe it's just chatting with AI, but it feels different. And that seems to be the majority of my life, to be honest, if I'm honest about it. But I do see the problems, and the problems tend to take most of my thinking. Even when, if I'm going through Netflix watching the thing, I might be thinking in the back of my head about the problem. So I'm not really actually enjoying Netflix now I think about it because I'm thinking you really should be working on this, or you really should be doing something else, or there's just something else in the back of my head that's kind of churning. And maybe I'm using Netflix, I think, to just sort of relax while that's churning because it feels just a way to de-stress. So I know I have described for you an experience. It's a description of my experience around trying to figure out how do I actually solve problems with AI when all I see is problems, and every time I try to solve the problem, I just see different problems, but there's always problems. I don't want problems anymore. I don't want to experience these problems anymore. It just doesn't seem resourceful. I just want the solutions, and I know that sounds magical, and that's why I think I'm crazy for even asking this, but AI as I mentioned earlier, is this big giant database that seems to have all of human knowledge and all the different connections to human knowledge that could ever possibly exist, at least up until this moment in time, until there's just more connections. And my guess is there's something that I can do differently to actually experience this, but I'm not at all sure what to do. And so at this point, because I've described this experience, I'd like you to experience what I am highly likely to be experiencing, and then give me back what you feel is the most useful experience that I can experience in this moment. Okay, so we're gonna go through and I'm gonna kind of chat through this. All I did just then is paste in my other example so I can stitch them together. All right, or the other part, the first part of it that had stopped when the mic stopped. Okay, so basically all I'm doing, people, I think, believe they have to describe the problem by focusing on the problem. And I described the problem not by focusing on the problem, believe it or not, but by describing my experience of problems, right? Of what I've been not a particular problem, the problem of problems that I have. So I'm leveling it up right now. Because why do I want to solve a particular problem with AI when I can solve all the problems all at once? That's what we're trying to do here. That's why I did it the way I did it. I didn't talk about a specific problem, but I gave examples of types of problems, right? So we talked about how to solve problems. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm describing what's going on, right? Literally describing what's going on to try to solve the problem, because I'm describing the current state. And the way to think about this is like, what is your current experience right now? What is going on right now? However you say that is correct. And this is the hardest, easiest part of this. Right now, most of us edit. I certainly did. I would edit what I would do. That's why I like talking it out when I'm really doing stuff like this, because you edit the words. And if you're typing it out, you start editing things, and then you're determining what you're putting into the AI as a machine to process stuff, it spits back, and that alters the result accidentally. And unbeknownst to me, that's what was happening. So what I basically try to do now is just mentally, I keep my mind in that state of, what am I experiencing right now? Here's the stress I'm experiencing. Here's what it feels like. Here's an example of where that stress. How do I know I have that stress? Oh, because I can see in the bank account, blah, blah, blah. Like all that stuff just sort of flowed out because it was useful at that moment when, as a context for what's going on right now. The entire point of this is to give it to AI and say, here's my experience. What AI is going to do is it maps all the patterns of those words. It does not care about the words at all. It's mapping the patterns. And it's going to go find a similar map of patterns in its database, and it's going to match those two, and it's going to light up. It's going to see something that makes sense to connect to. And then the response comes back. And it should come back in such a way, especially with this gem, because this leap gem does, it should come back in such a way that pulls me out of where I'm at, which I am. I can experience a definite part of this. Now, I obviously think it's slightly different about problems than maybe what my friend had that I was talking to a couple of days ago about this. But that's only because I'm using AI so much. And I can still experience what a problem is. I haven't lost that ability. I know problems exist. I just don't see as many right now. But I'm hopefully going to experience not seeing any, and not being able to see any would be even better. But I don't know if that's possible. I kind of asked that, but we'll see, right? So that's kind of what I'm doing, is I'm just generically explaining what's going on, right? How I'm trying to solve problems. I gave it some specifics, right? Like, here's this email I was trying to do, and then here's kind of what happens. And this is, I have talked to so many people about this, where they're trying to do content, and it always sounds like AI. And there's all AI website scrapers and AI builders and AI and it always sounds like AI. And then there's AI that now goes and detects if it sounds like AI. But of course, it's going to sound like AI. It's freaking AI. It's, and that's a whole different conversation. There are ways to not do that. But there's also, that's just the content side of things. But then there's also just the regular stuff, the stuff that stresses you out, that you probably are trying to work out in a personal life, maybe. So I'm trying to do like the business side of the problems that might be there, or the personal side of problems, right? Finances are a problem. Relationships can be a problem. Your own battle with yourself can be a problem. It has been for me. I have experienced this. I know what this is like. So that's what I was experiencing as I was kind of given this, kind of putting myself back into that, going, this is what it's like. It is like that, right? At least for me, my experience of it. Maybe not exactly the way you would describe it, but hopefully you got the kind of the experience. You can kind of sense that, yeah, I get it. I've been there. I know what this guy's talking about. And that's what I'm trying to do, my friend. I'm trying to show him, like, this is kind of how I would do it. And I would be this, I'm not saying specifics in here, but it doesn't matter about the specifics. It just matters the patterns I'm trying to communicate, which is business-wise, I'm trying to do these types of problems. Personally, I'm trying to do these types of problems. And all I see is problems, and I just see lesser versions of problems, and I'm just so freaking busy and thinking about all the stuff that I get that I kind of move things forward, but it doesn't actually move forward. It doesn't feel like eventually it's moving forward. I just have little less problems, but a whole lot of little problems. It's weird how that happens, but that's kind of what's going on. People are getting really stressed out using AI accidentally to really stress themselves out, but they don't realize it yet. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out is how am I doing that, right? How am I doing that? If that's what I'm doing. And again, this is a little bit of kind of, by the way, I have not done this before. This is all live. And that's why I do it like this, so you can see exactly what it was. I don't want to manicure something and be like, oh, here's the perfect thing. That's not to say some videos won't look like that, but it's not because I did that. Okay, so anyway, so this is the whole thing. Real world issues. This is important because I need the AI to know I'm not fantasizing. I'm not making a mountain out of a molehill. I'm looking at massive mountains that are turning into volcanoes that are firing everywhere, and I have like a water gun. And I'm like, I'm going to put out the volcanoes. Not the one, all of them with my water gun. I have no idea how to do this, but AI is supposed to be the super powerful whatever stops volcanoes. So can we do that? So I'll make something up, but think about what I just described there. And I didn't tell AI this, but think about the description. What could that possibly be? What would you even ask for that put out all the volcanoes simultaneously? How would you describe that? You can't. I can't make up that solution. I don't know what that would be. It would be magic. I would have to say, and something magical happens and all the volcanoes stopped. Like that, it just has to get to a point where it's like that. Because I wouldn't know how to say, oh, well, I need you to move a tectonic plate over here that vents this other stuff over here so that this volcano goes down, which will chain reaction to this one, or whatever the thing is that actually happens in the background to cause that. Doesn't matter. To me, it'll be magic. They just all sort of go back down, at least mentally. That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out how to do, because I keep trying to tell myself how to solve problems with AI, and I'm using AI to tell myself how to solve problems with AI, and I still just seem to have problems. So I'm wondering, maybe I'm not actually solving problems. I'm making things worse, maybe. And I'm trying to leap out of this, right? That's why this prompt is like this. So not fantasy, they're real. I've got others telling me they're happening. This is a way for me to tell the AI, again, not in my head, real, right? There's feedback. This is an environmental concern because I'm in an environment where people are giving me feedback that, yeah, this is true. You aren't making a mountain out of a molehill. This is an issue you got to solve. And, we'd love to help you, but we don't know how either. And it's like, okay, well, I can go to AI, but then again, spinning in circles kind of feeling, right? So, all right, so there we go. So I've got that. I can see the person's eyes. It's real, it's real, it's real. So, and that's all I'm trying to communicate to the AI. Again, I'm using these words, but you don't have to say these words. I'm trying to give you the patterns that I'm communicating, right? As I'm going through, because that is how I am talking, right? Again, I'm using AI, but I feel like I'm operating AI more usefully because I feel like it's like a tech suit, like I've got gloves on and I'm operating AI right now. So specifically giving it patterns, and I'm trying to point out the patterns to you so you know, but at the same time, it is so easy. It will be intuitive. You just need to describe what is going on and be honest about it and look everywhere in your experience and be like, oh yeah, and this, and this, and this. It's fine. Let it all out. You don't have to go into level detailed specifics. You just need to let it know kind of generally what's happening. What are the patterns that you're seeing around in your experience, right? Is it a bunch of personal stuff? Is it business stuff? Is it both, right? That sort of stuff. What are the patterns? And are they, how do you know that they're real? How do you know they're actual problems, right? How do you know there's patterns that say, yeah, these are actual real patterns and not just something you made up or you think is, there. So it is real, right? So there we go. So now it's okay. Here's what I've been trying to do. Using AI as this big giant database. Everybody tells me everybody won't shut up about how awesome AI is. And yet everyone's seemingly more and more news stories about people freaking themselves out with AI, causing anxiety with AI, having personal relationships with AI, stressing themselves out with AI. I have a lot of business colleagues that are desperately trying to figure out how to use AI. There are corporations who are saying AI is not useful. Wow, what a miss. What a miss. So I'm like, all right, so here's all the stuff. That's fine. I'm just trying to explain what's going on to AI. And I'm not trying to say that it's a miss here. It is. But at this stage, I'm not, because I'm kind of experiencing when I was writing or creating this prompt here, talking it through, what was going on, right? Here's what I'm trying to do. Here's what's not working. I don't know. This is supposed to be an amazing thing. How come it's not an amazing thing for me, right? So, and then here's, right, some reason it's not working, blah, blah, blah. So then I'm going through and I just start talking about my experience, again, this is kind of going to feel like I'm telling you, you start by describing the problem and then you start by describing the solution. You are not, I promise you, not supposed to do that, right? I am not doing that. What I am doing is describing my environment that I'm around, and I'm just seeing what's there and I'm reporting it in. That's all I'm doing. So part of what I saw is, you know what I really want, as I'm thinking through this, as I'm talking it through, I'm just experiencing a whole lot of problems. And what I don't want to experience problems. Like, I'm so tired of that. What I want to do is just, I just want to see solutions. I want to see the obvious stuff. I just don't want to have to think about this stuff anymore. That's the whole point. It's stressing me out constantly. And I started thinking at that point, and this happened in real time. I started thinking, well, like what? What would that be? What's an obvious, useful thing? Well, like the things they obviously know. What's something that you obviously know? Well, I know obviously that I want coffee, and I'm going to grind coffee beans, and I don't have to think and plan and stress myself out about that. I just obviously know what to do. It's a solution. I like coffee. Get coffee. Easy. I don't have to put a whole lot of mental stress in there. In a way, another example of that might be driving. So in the beginning, right, we kind of have those white knuckle drivers, and and I was like this for sure. I distinctly remember this experience when I was going to get my license. Believe it or not, I had my learner's permit. My mom is sitting in my passenger seat of this car that I had from my aunt, who had let me have this, kind of handed me down this car, which was awesome. Thank you again for that. And I'm driving, and actually, I think I had bought another. Actually, I think at that point I did have the car. Either way, it doesn't matter what the car is. The point is, I'm driving, and the car's ramping up, and it's going to 55 miles an hour. And I remember going to 55. Those of you in Texas, where I am, know how slow 55 is here. But I remember being that and doing 55, and she was trying to get me to go faster and faster, but like, you're doing 45, go to 50, go to 55. And I was at 55, and I remember kind of going like, oh my God, I was so aware. I was freaking out how fast this chunk of metal was that I was driving to the DMV to go get my license with my mom next. It was crazy, crazy feeling. And I distinctly remember that even now. I can experience that. And yet now, you go down pretty much most highways in Texas, and most of them are 75 or 80 miles an hour, you know? And I'm not a speeder, but there are times where I'm going slightly more than 80, and it's not a big deal. Now, is that car technology? Sure, okay, whatever. But it's also the fact that I'm used to driving. I have experience as a driver now, so I'm not as aware of how fast it is. Not that I'm not consciously aware. Of course I am. If I wanted to pay attention to that, I could. It's that I don't have to think about that because that's not new anymore. That's something that my brain knows how to deal with, right? It's been driving for so long, it just sort of automated driving now. That's the idea. I want to automate problems, so I just don't have problems. So much so, what I really want to automate is not the problem, it's the solution. I want to automate solutions just like I automated driving. I just can get in the car and drive. And sometimes, when you've probably had this experience, you're driving, you get to a place and you don't even remember, like, with the last, because your head was someplace else or whatever, and you just forget because you're on autopilot. What an incredible function that is for the human being, the body to be able to do, with the brain to be able to do that. That means it can do that for anything. It just shows us that it can do it for driving. Well, can I do it for solutions? Can I just automate solutions? That would be pretty cool. And we haven't even hit enter yet. This is just the prompt, but this is what's in my head as I'm thinking through this now, right? So I give examples of where this would be. What is an automated solution, kind of? And I didn't say that, but it would be great to have said that, but I might have to steer it. We'll see what it says. So now it's okay. Maybe I'm chatting with AI. Now I'm going through this, what's actually happening. And this does not happen now for me because, again, I've used AI a bunch as training wheels to help automate things, right? So I can kind of reset and get a lot of the resources back. However, I have tried this thing so much where it's like, I just need to chill. And my wife will tell you this. I just need to chill. Leave me alone. I'm just trying to, and I've told her this. I'm like, I'm watching Netflix, but I'm not actually watching Netflix. What I'm doing is distracting myself so the back of my brain, that wasn't the back of my brain, it was the front of my brain, would process and spin in circles about whatever the new thing was I was supposed to be actually working on while I was watching Netflix. And in my head, I'm tricking myself into thinking that I'm actually being productive, when in reality, I'm not enjoying Netflix because I'm using it to just stress myself out thinking about how I should not be watching Netflix. And I'm not actually solving any problems. I'm just thinking about all the solutions to problems that I have and I'm not working on because I'm watching Netflix. And this was a really challenging period of time. Because insert Netflix here. It doesn't matter what your Netflix is, your version of that. Maybe it's scrolling on YouTube. I hope that it was to some extent if you found this video, because if that was true, right now, you and I have an experience that is shared. Now, again, I did this at a different time in a different space, whatever, but it's connected now. So if this is already starting to make sense, and you're like, okay, not only do you want more content from here, which is fine. Again, I appreciate the likes, shares, and comments for people that are doing it for that reason. However, I really want you participating and helping to build the community here as you do consciously. You're intentionally doing that. So you intentionally like, you intentionally subscribe, you intentionally comment, you intentionally go into the community, make a post, whatever those actions are. Just make it intentional, because you're saying, I want more people like me, to the algorithm to show this to more people like me, right? All right. So now we're going through, and this is the part where it's latent experience coming in. Now, again, this particular bot has been set up a little bit, but I'm doing additional things for it because I needed to go through and fill in the blanks that I missed. All of this stuff is pattern that it's going to go through and figure out the words and structures and strategies and tactics and how I think about stuff and what I'm likely doing already, and And I needed to go through here, and that's why I say it's a description of an experience. Please go through and see how I'm solving actual problems, because maybe I'm describing how I'm doing it, but I only described 3 of the 28 steps. But AI will fill in the other 28 steps because, again, it has a connection to all of that, right? It's in the database. I just needed to get the database to light up those connections between those nodes so I can get the words back, and then the words show up as a result. And that's kind of how this whole machine works. So I'm basically saying, okay, I don't want problems anymore. And I'm focusing very specifically on language that I would probably talk about how I want to experience solutions all the time, but that's not where people start. They just see problems. So just say you don't want to see problems anymore. Don't try to twist your words into my words. Just use your words. They will eventually become their own patterns because the AI will do this heavy lifting for you. You do not have to do anything. You just have to explain what's going on and share it. Share that experience that you have. And I mean experience, like I have driving experience. Well, I have an experience of life right now at this moment that is putting me here. Here's what my experience that I'm experiencing of life has. So now I'm explaining that. And this is where I'm honestly giving it. Like, hey, I know this sounds magical. This is why I think I'm crazy right now. It's okay. Tell it that. That was my experience. I was experiencing that. That is so important. Do you know how much context I have just communicated to the AI? That somebody else is thinking they have to write a prompt with this big giant long thing and knowledge documents and everything else. I'm like, nope, you don't. The AI will absolutely pick up on these patterns. And with any luck, we'll see that because I'm putting a lot in the line right now since we're doing this live. So I've got that human knowledge, all the differences, connections of human knowledge, right? I'm trying to get it to access its what I refer to as its latent experience, which is essentially all of the connections that it has in the database that are not lit up yet, but at this point are worth lighting up. That's what we're trying to do. So, and then have it go through to actually experience. Now remember, this is not a real thing. It's not alive. It's just a machine. So it's not actually experiencing. It has no brain, but it mimics experience, right? It processes. But if I asked it to process, it will process. And I don't want it to process because then it's analyzing, compartmentalizing. And I know it's kind of doing that anyway, but it's through experience, it will process differently through the word experience, which again can mean skills, like I know how to drive a car, but it can be experience, like I've driven a car for 20 years, right? 2 different things. That's why that word experience is so important. And again, just be honest. I don't know what to do. This is you giving up. It's good. It feels so good to just be like, I don't know what to do. And then just let it go. And you can feel your shoulders drop sometimes. That's how you know you're doing that right, by the way. You're letting go because you're finally open to not fighting about it anymore, even if that's fighting yourself, which I am really good at doing. So good, in fact, I can recognize it now, but boy, did that happen for years. All right, so at this point, I've described the experience like you'd experience what I'm highly likely to be experiencing. That's me putting it from my perspective now, so it fills in all the other blanks because it cannot help but have, obviously, its connection to itself. So it starts filling in all the blanks of that database so I can get it lit up the way I need it to, so it can, when it comes back, it should come back with something that is useful to me. That's what I'm looking for. Obviously useful stuff where it's just like, oh, something like that. That's kind of what we're looking for, that sort of experience. All right, so let's do the big reveal. We're hitting submit. I'm gonna let it do its thing. By the way, again, just to emphasize, Flash model here is free. Anybody can do this with gems. You can use our gem. You can learn how to do this at automatedwith.tech if you really want to get into this latent experience prompting thing. But that's not for the faint of heart. Be an AI person if you're doing that. Don't be a casual user yet. If you're a casual user of AI doing stuff like this, use these gems. That's what we're doing for. And I'll create more gems. I want you to put it in the community, though, what you need created, right? So however you need to reach me is fine now. I used to be like, let's get it in YouTube, but if it's not in YouTube, so be it. Just get it to me what you need, and I'll be able to help you out. Or I'll do my best. I'll do my best. I'll say that. Hopefully it's useful. All right, so here's the setup. Here's the stuck state I'm currently in. The first thing I'm looking for is, did it hit me where I go, yes, that's exactly what's going on? Because if it doesn't, I need to reprompt it. I didn't give it the right information. So what I'm looking first from the leap here is did it nail the stuck state, the state I'm trying to experience? Did it nail what I'm experiencing in a way that it said it even better than I could say it? Because when I experience that, I go, yeah, oh my God, that's exactly what I should have said. That's a much better way of saying that. And then I know we're in the same spot. I am connected, integrated, right? Kind of using AI like an integrated tech suit is how I sort of imagine it. And I'm operating AI at this point. It's like, yep, I know exactly where you are. Perfect. Let's make sure that stuff is correct. Because if it's not, anything else it says is irrelevant, right? So I got to make sure it starts out in the same thing. So absolutely perfect application, which is whatever reason this always says that. So I'm using, okay, so here's the core frustration of trying to force a computational tool, which all AI is just a computational tool. Please always remember that. Not alive, never alive. Everything's a simulation, computational tool, a word calculator, some of you call it, which is also a good way to say that. It's a computational tool to solve a human problem. So I'm using a machine to solve a human problem. A problem that's rooted not in data, but in my perception, how I'm looking at things. And I've perfectly articulated a familiar feeling of the iterative loop, which is just sort of spinning in circles. So far, so good. Now, would I say it exactly like this? No, but is it exactly what I'm experiencing when I was going through that prompt? 100% yes. When I was describing my experience, it's exactly right. Now, the state's characterized by the belief that a solution is better than the description of the problem. This is interesting. The state is characterized. The only way for me to stress myself out like that is by the belief. I have to believe that a solution is better than the description of the problem or an incremental improvement on a flawed initial state. So I have to believe that a solution is better than me just describing the problem, and a solution is better than just an incremental progress on the thing, but still I have the problem, right? That's what but you see how it changed the word and went to flawed initial state? It's literally already trying to guide me to somewhere. I can feel that. Because I'm like, oh, it didn't say problem there. I said flawed initial state. Okay, that's different, but also very useful. I'm okay with this. I'm in line with where this is. You feel like you're making progress because the output is technically correct. So everyone had said, give me 5 ideas for blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, there are 5 ideas and they're technically correct, but man, they're just not good, right? It's stuff like that. It's technically correct, just not useful. And then I start thinking, correct, but not useful. I wonder how much other stuff we've been thinking we're right on, we're correct, but maybe it's not useful. But the fundamental problem remains, right? Again, not useful. The effort of chasing a better output becomes its own new problem. It's a mental loop that whispers, if I could just describe this mess perfectly, the mess would magically clean itself up. Said another way, especially for those of you in the AI world, right now, this is what's happening. Everyone's going context engineering. If you could just describe the mess perfectly, if you could just give AI all the context it needs, then AI will magically clean itself up. And that's kind of what context engineering is all about, this new trend, which is not at all useful. Again, certain circumstances it is. I don't want to say it's not at all useful. I'm really bad at that. I should avoid that. It is useful, just doesn't have the level of usefulness that this does. It's useful in other certain areas. It's useful. More in automation, stuff like that. Okay. So then we're going to go forward. The prompt's continuing. So now I know I'm the stuck state. I'm like 100%. That's exactly right. I'm there. It's there. I get it. So we're starting in the same area. I've confirmed with it now that yes, I've sort of mapped my experience into this machine, which is the whole freaking point. Because from my perspective, it's like a digital subconscious now that I just created. So now I've got my digital subconscious and it's repeating back to me what's going on. I'm like, yep, that's exactly right. If I could talk with my subconscious, it would be saying this, or at least something similar to this. It would be this pattern. Again, maybe not these words, but I don't care about the words. I care about the experience I'm having with them. So now it's the magic trick. All right, the trick here, what's the simple thing that I'm missing? What's the obvious thing I just keep stepping over? The trick is to stop trying to describe the walls of your current prison. The problem, okay. Now this is where I'm trying to experience this along with hopefully what you're experiencing, but I'm kind of going like, Stop trying to describe the walls of the prison, which is the problems, and instead focus on what it feels like to be standing outside of the prison, which is the solution. You must change your fundamental request from help me get rid of this problem, or I'm going to rephrase to help me get out of prison, to describe the emotional and physical reality of the problem already being gone, which means going to AI saying, give me a description of what it's like when I'm not in prison so I can experience not being in prison. That's interesting. And already I'm starting to go like, okay, so it's not how to solve a problem. It's not by describing the problem. It's asking AI to describe the solution for that problem not being there, which is interesting because I don't necessarily know how to do that without describing a problem yet directly. Like, how can I say, I need you to provide the solution as if the problem wasn't there, but how do I say that without saying the problem? Okay, let's continue though, but I'm intrigued. The logical premise, the AI is magnificent pattern matching engine. It is what it's for. It's an automated thinking machine. When you feed a detailed sensory description of a problem, money issues, relationship, conflict, stress, which I did, and you noticed I fed it exactly detailed sensory description of the problem. I was talking about that in the beginning. Then you're asking it to generate a highly detailed pattern of a problem, which is interesting. So the more I describe the problem, the more it's patterning the problem. And you think that's a good idea. I used to think that was a good idea because I'm like, oh, well, AI has to know the problem. Okay. But then AI just has a problem too to solve. And you've just accidentally maybe restricted it to just the problem that it can solve. And it doesn't have access to all the other toolkits around it that were beyond that problem that it actually needs in order to experience. Maybe. Let's see where this goes. The result is a text output that perfectly models the logic. And this is why the email feels phoned in. The advice feels generic. It's structurally correct, but emotionally inert. So think about this. How many times you've gone with your AI and your AI comes back with something, you're like, like it's good. It's just not great. Kind of like that. Or that sounds like AI. Or, okay, well, that gives me something. At least I can work on something now. How many times has AI delivered work to you? Because we asked it to accidentally? I try not to have any work delivered to me by anyone, especially AI. It is a tool that does the work. It's not supposed to give me work to do. So how do we do this? By contrast, if you give it a vivid description of an outcome, an experience, or a desired feeling, right? The feeling of relaxed competence. Because I wouldn't know how to give it a desired feeling. I mean, the desired feeling is no freaking problem. I don't want the problem. That's the desired feeling, whatever that is, right? I don't know how to say that. The simple joy of morning coffee, the clarity of the resolved conflict, right? All that sort of stuff I had described. I was starting to a little bit, kind of going that direction, but I wasn't there. You give the AI a rich, desirable pattern to match. If you do that, right, you're asking it to build a model of latent experience, which you talked about earlier. This is just the way of lighting up in the LLM the parts that are the most useful in the LLM that are highest probability to be the absolute most useful thing for you at this time, right? That's why we're doing this. That's how it works. It's the machinery at motion here. It's ones and zeros flying around. It's going to give you a narrative blueprint of the state, and crucially, it will identify the keystone action or insight that triggered the shift in your state. So you are no longer seeing problems, you are only experiencing solutions. Interesting. It's not problem solving. You shouldn't try to solve problems with AI. You can't solve problems with AI. It's about outcome modeling, which sounds awesome. But how do you do that? That just sounds like a whole other thing I have to go learn. Well, let's continue. Here's the old way. Here's maybe what I've done in the past. Maybe you've done something like this. Something similar. Again, not these exact words, but the pattern of it. I've got money problems and stress. I've tried getting advice, but it hasn't worked. I need you to give me a definitive step-by-step plan that solves my financial stress, relationship contacts, and overall feeling of being overwhelmed. Those of you who are coders, I have seen this happen a lot, where coders will be in here and they'll be like, and they'll start arguing with the AI. No, you're not right. You can do it like this. And they've lost connection with it at that point. They just don't realize it, right? But it's kind of why I've done this stuff before. Make sure the plan is realistic for somebody with multiple real world issues. Like, here's what I've got. Here's what's going on. Here are my constraints. Here's the system. Here's the problem. Please fix, please fix, please fix. Fix me, fix me, fix me. That's kind of what we're trying to do. Logically sounds fine. Emotionally probably sounds fine. Of course, that sounds like it should work. However, why does this fail? Because it's a dense description of the problem. That's all we see is the problem. We're not giving it anything that it can see as a solution. And because we can't see the solution, we can't describe the solution. So we think magically it's just going to make something up that's going to be amazing, but We didn't actually ask it to do that. We just described a problem, so it models the problem. And if it models the problem, it models the constraints inherent within the problem. In other words, you're giving your problem to AI so it has that problem, and you think AI will automatically become alive and know it's a problem. It doesn't. It just knows it's a pattern from you. It doesn't see it as a problem. It's just a pattern that you gave it. So it models that pattern and it goes, oh, this is a pattern. I'm now going to stay within this pattern. And I will not access anything outside of this pattern because I'm told to stay within this pattern. Said another way, you delivered your problem into AI and you say you work on it, but you got to stay within the constraints of the problem as far as I can tell. But I need you to figure out a solution. By the way, I have no idea what the solution is. It's something else. I have no idea. But here's the problem. Here's all the details of the problem. And everything you keep giving it digs it deeper and deeper and deeper into a less resourceful space in its own latent memory, in the own vector database. So it's unlikely to be able to connect to actually the crazy stuff it has to connect to because we didn't ask it to, right? And that's kind of what happens in the machinery of this tool. That's what's happening. It's why it comes back, right? If it has AI to be a life coach, therapist, or financial advisor all at one. I've seen lots of people try to do this. Like it's just a magic thing that can be anything at all times just because you asked it a simple sentence. So now it's going to come back with a highly structured, logical, deeply unsatisfying list of generic to-dos. Here's how you can budget. Make sure, okay, let's talk about how open communication and use I statements when you're talking to people. I feel that, we have to be mindful and make sure you meditate and you're going to do a 5-minute morning routine. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I get it because I understood that to be useful at a certain point. It is not at all useful, by the way. It's just a bunch of extra stuff you have to do. And you don't have to do anything. But you don't know that because you're trying to solve a problem. And AI doesn't help you with that because you told it to try to solve the problem, not actually to shift your state, which is really what you want, but you didn't know what to ask for. But I'm starting to realize because I'm using this Leap Gem in this way, which you can do too because it's completely free. Everything's out there. Create a free Gmail account. Click on that link on thisisyourmindonai.com. It'll go right to the gem. You can do everything. You can follow along. So now it confirms the logic of the problems without addressing the feeling of stress, which is the actual goal, which is true. There's many of us who have looked at other people's lives and probably say, wow, they really have some problems, but they sort of just fix them and move on and things just magically happen in their world around those. That's probably because those people do not experience it as problems. They just sort of see the solutions that were there. Maybe you saw a problem, which is fine, but they don't have to see it like that. They just experience the solution and move forward. So, okay, now we're going to go into step 2. This is where the leap occurs. This is where the gem is now saying, all right, if this is what's going on, and which is true. It nailed the experience. It nailed that stuck state. Like, yep, I'm experiencing what this is. It's centered. Now it goes, here's why in the past it hasn't happened. So it's setting me up to let me know if you continue thinking like this is what is causing this, right? Or potentially. Doesn't mean it's absolutely true. This whole thing could be a hallucination with AI. It doesn't matter. I'm looking for the usefulness of where it is, not if it's right or wrong. Leave that world. It's not a thing. It's useful or not useful. And potentially useful. That's kind of how I think about it. Useful and potentially useful. Useful is useful right now. Potentially useful is useful later. So now, as I go through, this is the prompt that it says, if you were doing this and you were writing a specific prompt in this style to get me, right? So in this case, forget the problems of the moment. Instead, focus on the experience, the moment you make coffee, the moment you're just enjoying the walk, the time you don't have to think about a problem. So literally, you don't try to solve problems with AI. You just describe the solutions that you don't know how to describe. And there are ways to do that. That's what this gem helps us to do. That's literally what I just showed you how to do in the beginning. You may not have realized that, but if you look back, you'll see this. I asked it for a solution by describing a solution as a current state of what's going on right now, including all the bad stuff. Here's the stuff I don't like. Here's the stuff I do like. Here's stuff that hasn't worked in the past. Here's stuff that I would like to work in the past. Here's all of this mess of ingredients. Take it. You figure it out. Not, here's my thing. Here's this. I need you to do this. Nope. I just describe. That's it. Then you give it to Leap Gem. The Leap Gem's code, the instructions back there, have it actually go through and experience it and then pull back the other side of it and say, oh, you described the front side of the coin, but if you look on the other side, here's all the stuff you missed that you're not aware of. That's also there in your patterns. That's kind of why this is important. So now it's coming back and it says, all right, well, if you actually do this, right, you're going to ask the AI to model a solution state that you know exists. You already know exists. So how do we do this? What does it do? Well, AI does it for you. You don't have to do this. You don't have to think about it. You just use the prompt. Please describe the following moment in time from a close first-person sensory perspective. This is so that as you're reading through, you start feeling it in your body. This is important, very important, because it's a physiological change, and it changes the experience in your head, and it makes it a little easier to have the knowledge that you need and to take actions, because it won't feel like new information you have to do stuff with. It'll just feel like stuff that you're already doing and just makes sense to keep doing. That's kind of how it's what it's like. Again, like an automated, like you just drive a car, you don't probably think about it right now. If I asked you to drive over to my place or drive over to some place, you would probably just get in the car and not really think about the driving part, because that part's automated. That's kind of what this can be. So here's the scene. It says, describe the following moment in time. And now this would be you, in theory, saying, here's what I'm wanting to happen. So you're kind of forecasting the future, and you're like, oh, it's Thursday afternoon. I'm sitting down after I've successfully executed a complex multi-step task, but one that for the first time felt completely natural, organized, and effortless. That would be cool. The sensory experience. Describe the feeling of quiet post-task competence. Again, don't worry about the words. Let AI do its thing. I'm just experiencing if this is useful. I'm like, if it did that, yeah, that'd be awesome. What does the air in the room smell like? How does the light hit the surfaces? Focus on the absence of churning anxiety, which is mostly what a lot of us are doing. Describe, and I absolutely have, describe the feeling in my chest and the easy, relaxed pace of my breathing, which is kind of already starting to happen now. There is no background thought whispering. Oh my God, there's no background thought whispering, you should be doing something else. Do you know how many hours and years of my life have just been that static background, you should be doing something else, noise of things that my logical brain is like, no. Oh man, it'd be awesome. The mind is clear, enjoying the evidence. And this is important because this is AI telling you this is about to be real. You're not enjoying a fantasy of how you're not working and convinced yourself that not working is awesome and useful for everybody else. There is true evidence the work has been completed. It is truly solved. Not, I just decided to trick my mental mind into making it not a problem anymore and the fire continues. It's like, no, it's evidence. It's good. Anybody can see that it's over, not just you. The internal monologue. Capture the internal thoughts. What are not about the next problem, which is not about the next problem, but about the process that just concluded. So now you're thinking about all the cool stuff that just happened. Oh, that would be a kind of a better thing to experience than problems all the time. The thought should be simple, declarative, and focused on how I knew what to do next at every step. So I'm asking AI with this prompt to tell me, how do I know what to do at every step? That's kind of interesting. You may not have realized that this, again, is just a prompt. You literally just would grab this, and I'll show you what this looks like if I have some time here. I'll need to get going for a meeting in just a moment. But I'll just grab that prompt. This is it. So there's the internal monologue. Then there's their request. Based on the narrative you just created, identify the single most critical, non-obvious insight, perspective, or simple action that and this is important because again, this is AI doing this for you. When I internalized it, not internalized it. So now it's going to write it in a way that it's going to feel like you already did it, which is important because you will literally experience it if you allow yourself to. So that I, internalized, make the entire multi-problem process collapse from an overwhelming list of tasks into this single, easy, obvious flow. I need the simple, elegant principle, right? Now, what happens with this gem is it will continue and it'll say, listen, I know you don't need to go prompt this, or you don't want to necessarily right now. And you probably don't know if it's going to work or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume at this point, and we're going to do a little role play as if you had prompted me. And then it will continue. So here is what is likely to happen if I had started with this. It'll be something similar to this. And let's go through the experiment. Try to experience it. Try to feel what the usefulness is for you. Don't worry about the words being right or wrong. It's the experience of what the pattern's trying to communicate here. This is where we start integrating with AI and actually operating and being like, okay, I got it because it's helping me, right? It's changing some things. You feel different. You experience things differently. The chair's a worn leather. It lets out a slight contented sigh as I settle into it. The air smells faintly of brewing tea and the dust motes that are suspended in the late afternoon light. A peaceful, shimmering curtain. My hands rest lightly on the desk. They are steady, not clenching. My chest is open. The breathing is a slow, rhythmic tide. In a 4, out 6, in for 4, out for 6. It's already different. But if you didn't participate, you're not going to feel that. Just FYI. And you're just letting content slip through. participate. In for 4, out for 6. That old familiar churn that usually sits in my stomach is absent. It's not gone because I pushed it away. It's gone because it has no purchase here. It doesn't need to be here. It's not there. It's not gone because it was there and it got rid of it. It's gone because it was never here. My mind is gently reviewing the last couple of hours. The money problem didn't feel like a money problem. So now it's helping me get past whatever that was in my head. The money problem is not just feeling the money problem. It felt like organizing 3 documents. The difficult email wasn't a relationship conflict. It was just a matter of stating one clear boundary. I didn't solve my life's problems. I just addressed the single visible thing directly in front of me. The thought was, what should I do next? It wasn't that. It wasn't that. So the thought isn't, sorry, I read that wrong. The thought isn't, what should I do next? But rather, that was simple. Of course I did it that way. Of course I did it that way. Of course I would grind the beans to make coffee because it doesn't make sense to put whole beans in a coffee maker. Of course I would grind the beans. I don't need to think my way into that. It's obvious. All things are like that. This task wasn't complex. My prior perception of the task was. So my perception of what was going on was overly complex, which is why maybe I saw it like it was a problem instead of the obviously simple solution that it was presenting to me. And all I saw was the problem that was carrying that solution, right? The machinery of the solution is the problem. And we sometimes just focus on the machinery, the envelope that the message came in, and we just care about the envelope and you're missing the message, which is, oh, by the way, here's the solution. And if you just look for the solutions and you throw out the envelope, because you don't care about the envelope, you care about the solution, it's a little easier, right? So I'm focusing here, this is the keystone insight. The single critical perspective that shifted the process from an overwhelming problem to an easy flow is this. The only thing that needs to be solved is the next obvious thing. I don't need to think about 37 steps ahead. And I tell you from my perspective, golly, that is helpful. Because I am so good at predicting 37 steps ahead. Really good at it. I mean, really good at it. It's surprising sometimes. I scare myself how good I am at it. And yet, that takes so much effort to do that, and to realize you don't have to do that is so much easier, especially when you're 3 steps in and it's already not following your prediction, right? We all do this. We all plan out ahead, all the stuff without ever moving forward. I get it. I've done it. I've done it. So this is part of the reason I want to experience this with you. Hopefully I am with you right now. By the way, again, 4th wall break, not content, you and me connected. This is why you don't hear me going, hey guys. I'm not trying to do hey guys. This is you and me. This is an experience here on YouTube, not content. Practice. Participate. This is how you change what's happening inside you. Otherwise, you're just going to see it happen to me, and that's just eventually not going to be useful anymore. It might be useful as an experience right now, and if it is, awesome. This is where you can like, this is where you subscribe, this is where you leave a comment, because that is important to let the algorithm know, of course you want to get content from me. Fine. Not doing it because of that. Please don't do it because of that. Do it because you're consciously aware that when you do it right now, the algorithm gets a signal that goes, ooh, more people like this should be exposed to this message, should be in this community. And that's what you're trying to do, is attract others like you who are starting to get some insights, maybe like you are, that will also experience that here in this channel. That's why you do it with the algorithm, because you're consciously using technology at that point and you're not letting it just happen to you. We're consciously using AI right now in a very different way that I'm describing to get past the age-old question of how do I solve all problems all the time? Oh, they're not there. Instead, stop looking at the envelope, look what's inside, and just focus on that. That makes a lot of sense. So here we go. The key insight, the single critical perspective that shifted the process from an overwhelming problem to an easy flow is this. The only thing that needs to be solved is the next obvious thing. You weren't solving your life. You're only solving the fact that you haven't yet started the first micro step. That's it. You just need to get started. Just need to, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, now you're just walking all the time. And it's okay, because you're just in the ride now and you're not complaining about the machinery. You know, every problem that has felt real and observable was simply a mental projection of the final impossible looking outcome. Wow. That shifted something for me, because the envelope message thing doesn't work anymore. As an example, I thought it did up until now. This is literally, I'm trying to experience this as I go through this, so you can see this is how you use this. You don't just read the words and be like, oh, okay, whatever. You participate with the words. You have to experience this. Imagine if a solution was just a solution and it had all possible solutions. And you could see the obvious one on the one side of the coin. And on the other side, you would see the impossible solution, which of course is another way of saying problem. So on the one hand, you have the obvious solution, which you can look at anytime you want. On the other hand, you can look at the impossible solution, which we call problems. And I love seeing it like that because either way, I'm looking at solutions now. Did you see how AI did that? I would never have thought my way there. I was at message and an envelope. And this is why I'm trying to explain what I'm trying to do in my head as I'm processing on my end, as I'm experiencing what this is and trying to understand it and what's useful about it. And I realized, oh, it's not. I could kind of get the envelope message thing. If that works for you, awesome. And it was working for me until I saw this and I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's just communication. It's just solutions. It's just, I can look at the solution that definitely doesn't work and I can keep staring at that. Or I can just look at the solution, look for the solution. And it turns out that might be a little easier to find. The moment you begin to look for the obvious solution to the first 5 minutes of work, the problem state dissolves. The stress wasn't from problems, it was from trying to solve the entire future at once. And I know I have done that. Oh, have I done that? You don't have to solve the entire future at once. You don't need to solve the entire problem at once. You need to give the problem that you're giving to AI. And I gave AI all the problems so you can see that if I had just given it one problem, it still would have done the same thing. It would just give me the solution of a specific problem. But you can't talk about it like a problem. You have to talk about it as an experience of what's going on. And you're just describing the impossible solution that you see now. And this is why it works, because AI sees that impossible solution that you've described and it goes, oh, well, if you want to see the flip side of that, here's the actual obvious solution. And then you get your insight and you get something that you experience and it's coded differently in the brain. It uses different parts of the brain that's easier for the brain to access. It doesn't cost as much cognitive load energy up here, so the anxiety and stress isn't there because this part of the brain isn't having to be used for all of that. Right? This is the thinking part of our brain. It doesn't require thinking. It just requires that experience to know like, oh, I just need to look for the solution and it's going to be there, which you've probably heard a million times, but you've never felt. And this is the point, is in the body, be able to feel this is like, okay, every problem is just a mental projecting of the final impossible looking outcome. It's the impossible solution. That's all it is. Now I would like to look for a possible solution to the impossible solution instead of the impossible solution. I just want to look for a possible solution. Any possible solution. Doesn't matter because that's all I need is the first 5 minutes. And then I'll see another possible solution. And guess what? Another possible solution. And all of a sudden my brain is tuned in for solutions after solutions after solutions. So maybe that's how it works. We could do that. The final experience here, connected in whole. So now you possess not a direct answer, but a new map of your internal landscape. The AI's provided a narrative blueprint. Stop looking for the giant problem to solve and start looking for the first obvious 5-minute steps to take. And this is why it works, right? So I stopped chasing a better description of the problem, which is what so many people are literally being told to do. So I hear it. If you're like, that's not what they say, you're right. And it's not useful either because that's why we are where we are, because they keep listening to what people are telling to say. They're well-meaning and I understand where it's coming from. It's just not particularly useful. Even if they're right, which they are, that it needs context, they're maybe not telling us in the most useful way how to do that. And maybe something like latent experience prompting is a little easier to make that happen. So you cultivated a feeling of obvious next action. Technique can now be applied to describe the feeling of the perfect, clear email you want to write, and the AI will identify the single sentence that needs to be its core. And this is something, especially for those of you that are trying to do content, which I get, and I'm not talking about automating AI slop, because all of you know how to do that, or if you don't, well, you might anyway. I'm not going to teach you that. We're not talking about more content for content's sake. We're talking about useful content that actually connects with your market if you're a business person. With the world, it connects, it makes an experience for somebody else. It actually hits them in a way, it connects with them in a way. Well, what if you just experienced that and you just knew how to write emails that did that? Wouldn't that just be a better? And then you are connecting with actual other humans instead of trying to make a machine that you control connect with other humans. Or worse, you're thinking it's going to make them do this stuff because it's going to send these emails and they're going to have to click and they're going to do all this other stuff that goes on. You just don't have to do that. Describe the feelings of relaxed conversation. The AI is going to identify the single nonverbal cue that makes it possible. This is important. Describe the feeling of the relaxed conversation, right? Now you've got the power to create a target of an experience rather than the target of a task. And this is super important because now you experience solutions and they literally will just be obvious to you. And it'll be weird. It'll be like all of a sudden a friend texts you out of nowhere. I went on Telegram that's kind of where I connected with this person again, because everyone switched from Skype to Telegram. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to Telegram. And now all of a sudden I got connected with somebody else that was on there. We've had this fascinating conversation about what's kind of going on with AI and everything else going on. And who knows where that leads. And that has been happening to me over and over again. There are just solutions everywhere. Obvious ones. It's so obvious. It's like, if I'm thirsty, I'm going to drink water. It's that obvious. It's like, you don't think about, well, how do I get myself to drink water when I'm thirsty? It's like, I mean, you could ask that question, but imagine how hard it's going to be to drink water if you really had to think about all that. But instead, you I don't know, you just drink the water. Like, you're thirsty, drink water. No big deal. Speaking of. Okay, now, talk about experiencing in real life. So that's basically it. Now, the other thing you can do, and I will, is you can go in and let me just get this off here. Thank you, Nana Banana. Oh, never mind. Let me make sure this is going to refresh and make sure I'm signed in. There we are. Now I'm signed in. Okay, the other thing you can do is I'm just going to start with the prompt that it gave me. And I do this. I absolutely do this. Because a lot of times, remember, this is still the role play of it, right? So here's the actual prompt that you would just copy. Sometimes you get enough of an experience or an insight that shifts you where you're like, okay, I get how to, okay, never mind. I don't need to do the prompt. You might need to continue. Some people you will. That's okay. I'm going to just to show you, and then I'll wrap it up here. But I'm just going to do a generic prompt. Again, completely different story. Why? Because it's a brand new conversation. It's not, this isn't the gem anymore. This is just Gemini in this case. So you just paste in the prompt and it's automatically going to be in its state that it needs to be in. It's setting itself up already because of the way the prompt is structured, because AI structured it specifically to do this. So it's going to come up with a completely different story, but it should be the basic same pattern. Let's see. The soft click of laptop, finding the hitting send, the period at the end of a long, satisfying sentence. I lean back, the worn leather of my office chair creaks in agreement, molding itself to my weight. It is finished. Post-task competence. The air is still and clean. There's a faint, almost imperceptible scent of warm paper and ghosts of the afternoon's coffee, a dark, comforting bitterness that cling to the empty ceramic mug beside me. The room is quiet, kind of quiet that doesn't demand attention, but simply is. Like, peaceful. And I'm trying to experience that. I'm literally participating right now with this message. I hope you are too. Because if you just watched this and scanned through it, you missed the obvious usefulness that is in front of you because you were looking for maybe where it was correct. I mean, like, I wouldn't say it like that. I don't have a leather sofa or a leather seat. I mean, it's not about that. You experience this as if it were a thing, and then you're like, like what if this was happening? How would I experience it? I would experience it and be like, it just simply is. The light of the late afternoon is a heavy golden slab cutting across the room. It falls on the smooth polished surface. I see the light hitting the ridge of my thumbnail, and it shines. Now, this is real specific, but it's trying to get you in your body. It's trying to get you to physiologically, if I can say that 8 times fast, not, to sense, to be aware that you are sensing the machinery of your body, your 5 senses. That's what it's trying to activate here. That's important because that's how we experience, is through our senses. So it's lighting up our senses as we experience it. But if you just read these as words and you do not experience them, you're going to miss out on that connection. That's why this is a participation channel. This is an experience channel, not a content channel. And if you haven't done that yet, try to pull yourself back into that, right? And again, that's why I'm not talking to anybody else but you, just you on this. It falls on the smooth polished surface of the mahogany desk, illuminated dust motes. These are little dust things, I guess. I didn't know they were called motes, but now I do. Look, AI's making me smarter. I guess that rule's wrong too. Dancing lazily in a path, I see the light on the ridge of my thumbnail and it shines. There's no tremor in my hands, no residual tension in my shoulders, which honestly, my shoulders just went down just reading that, which was kind of funny, but it's true. My chest is open and easy. My breath is not frantic. Shallow flutter, but a slow, deep river flowing in and out, consistent and effortless. It's really hard to experience the stress of a problem right now. The stress that comes up when you think about the word problem right now. But that's because you're in a more resourceful state right now too. It's also a lot more resourceful to do it. The internal churning is gone. That familiar acidic knot of anxiety and that usually tightens in my stomach after a big push, the one that whispers, did you miss a step? You need to check it again. You're wasting time, is blissfully absent. Because boy, I've had that voice. My mind is a clear pane of glass reflecting only the fact of the finished work. The feeling's not pride. It's not ego. It's just competence, quiet competence. Like it's just done. It's just fine. It's done. It's easy. Just nothing there. It's just over. A knowledge that the structure I built is sound. The internal monologue. So I'm going to experience this. This time, I didn't reach for a list. I simply knew the next step. It wasn't a memory, but a natural progression. The tool I needed was already open. The data point I needed was already highlighted. So imagine the tool I needed was already in front of me. The data I needed was already highlighted. I was just not seeing it. I wasn't forcing the flow. I was following the flow. I saw the line between step 3 and step 4 and saw how they were truly the same action, just applied the different inputs. It was obvious. And everyone's wondered, what am I forgetting? This is the insight. Based on the experience, the absence of a list, the sense of natural progression, the realizing your distinct steps are actually the same action. The single most critical keystone you internalized was the goal is not to execute a list of tasks, but to identify the single master move, which is what we're all looking for. What's the one thing I can do that all the other dominoes automatically start moving? You can absolutely find that. And to repeat the process on various components. So you stop doing the task as do A, then B, then C, then D, and instead saw it as execute the core principle for each of those inputs, right? Getting a little esoteric there, but that's okay. You didn't learn 4 steps. You identified a single, elegant, repeatable action that applied to the entire problem set. This collapsed the anxiety of sequencing and turned into an overwhelming list into a simple, easy master flow. So now that works for solving any problem. Generally speaking, I don't look at problems like I used to look at problems. Not to say that I occasionally don't see them. Sure, they are. They hit me too, just like everybody else. I just experience them a whole lot less often. And I believe it's because my brain is a more resourceful state because it is so solution-oriented because of experiences like this. I'm just more naturally tuned into looking for solutions because I see problems as just the impossible solution. Cool, we know that one's impossible. What's the possible solutions? What's the most useful possible solution right now? That's obvious. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, wait, there's my phone. Oh, somebody just texted me. Or I'm not sure if there's a possible useful solution. Okay, it's potentially useful. I might keep that there. Let me see if there's something else that I can move forward. Right? And then all of a sudden that other problem starts fixing itself. It is shocking. It feels like magic. It's not. It's just I'm working on stuff. I just don't see it as working on stuff. I'm not perceiving it as work. It's just living, just existing, and it just happens to work. But it's because I'm not stressing myself out about what's going on and just enjoying what's going on. So it doesn't feel like work, but it's still the same work. I'm just describing it differently. I hope it makes sense. All right. Now, if I needed to actually solve a specific problem at this point, here's how I would do it, because I've solved all the problems, but let's pretend. Okay, let me do one very quickly, because then I'm going to have to jump off because I do have this meeting come at the top of the hour. So this is great. I think it makes sense. Let me see if I can get my mic back. Check, 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 check. Okay, I'm not. Check, 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 check. Ah, my freaking mic. Just try to turn off, turn back on. Actually, let me do this. I'm just going to reset real quick. And I'm going to give it a specific problem just so you can see how to do that too. I just thought it would be fun to solve all of them all at once. But if you want to keep a specific problem, work on that, you can absolutely do that in the same way. I think this is great. And I cannot get this thing to listen to me right now. What is happening? Check, check, check. There's my mic. I don't know why it's not listening. Check, check, check. Checking 1, 2, 3. There we go. Excellent. All right. Okay, I get the idea. Up. You all saw that working, and now it's not. Okay. Come on, Gemini. You could do it. Okay, that makes sense. I get the idea. And I do experience there's a lot more solutions possible, which is awesome. I'm trying to figure out right now a problem that I still kind of see with what I'm doing with a current channel on YouTube called This Is Your Mind on AI. And it's all about showing people different ways to use AI, basically the way that we're experiencing AI right now in this new sensory sort of way where it's delivering solutions and not necessarily problems. And the problem that I have is doing live streams all the time. I'm having these explanations all the time. They go for a little longer all the time, and everybody wants short videos, which I get, but I'm not sure that I can offer. I don't know how to make short videos out of conversations that I'm explaining this latent experiencing prompting stuff and how it works. And so I know that there's probably a solution of smaller videos, but I have no idea what that content would be. How do I take something as just as uniquely different as latent experience of prompting and create stuff. Like, could I do something where I'm describing like the difference between the white knuckle driver, and maybe that's the thinking part of it, and that's me being like problem oriented because I'm focusing too much on driving and what the actual driving is, and I'm not just letting my body use my experience of driving to just drive the car, so I can sort of see the solutions that are outside of the car. I can see the environment the car is in now, and I'm not inside the car anymore. I'm like outside of the car. But I don't know what that feels like or that experience is going to be for what a longer video, like these giant videos that I do that are live streams, which are awesome and I thoroughly enjoy. But I also want to do some shorter videos that make sense for people who need to experience it in shorter videos, because I know that they need that experience now. I have to meet them where they're at. And honestly, I'll tell you, I don't want to. I want them to meet me where I'm at, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm trying not to be lazy, but that's kind of how that makes me feel. It makes me feel like I'm a little bit lazy. But I also I don't have the obligation to meet them. So I don't want to feel like I'm forced to meet them. And that's a really weird problem that's maybe in my head, where I start feeling that. And so it's like, I want to help them, but I also need to explain all this stuff. And so how do I do both? Can I do both? That's a weird solution. What would it be like if I did? Is that even a way? Is that even useful? Maybe that's the wrong direction. Actually, before you even kind of decide one way or the other, I would like you to experience what I am experiencing. So I've given you this description of my experience. Experience that and combine it and evolve it with your experience, and then give me what is highly likely to be the most useful experience. And that's it. Now, again, use latent experience prompting there a little bit just to kind of get it to experience stuff, because this is not a gem. This is just regular Gemini. So I need to say that experience thing over and over again in the beginning, especially. Then you don't have to as much once it's set. But that's a real problem I was talking through. I was trying to figure out where are the problems that I'm not seeing and what was going on in my head, so I could describe a problem. Because I'm sure there's problems if I look. I just haven't been looking for a while. I was seeing the solution side of stuff. So now I want to see I saw the problem, which is true. I don't see the solution. That was very real. I don't have a master plan in the back of my head. I'm hoping to get it now. The depth you want to share, the latent experience and the master flow, the delivery method, the platform, short form video. I'm feeling the friction between the intellectual integrity and the practical necessity of meeting an audience where they are, which is true, because it takes some time to explain this, and it really should be an experience, and I don't know how to actually make it an experience in smaller videos. Not yet. It's not laziness, it's a fear of diluting the profound insight, which is exactly right. That's even better. I'm afraid that's true. This is what I mean by, this is where we're connected now. I'm like, yep, I'm integrated with this machine. This is exactly what I should have said. I don't want to dilute the message. I'm trying to figure out how do I concentrate things so that somebody can experience what maybe you and I have experienced to some extent, but they do it in 10 minutes, right? Can I figure out a way to do that? And maybe do it through these live streams somehow would be ideal. Who knows? The goal is not to immediately execute a list of discrete tasks, shorten the video, get views, maintain the depth, but to identify the single master move. So how do we do that? And again, what I'm looking for is just an insight or an idea, not a copy and paste solution. I'm not trying to be manipulated and led by AI. It's a resource for me. It's doing a bunch of thinking. It's going to give me the results of that thinking in the form of insights that I go, oh, these are the insights I receive are actually going to be obviously useful. I can do something with, and there's my next step. That's kind of what I'm expecting to happen here. So you've described the shift from the white knuckle driver, focusing on the problem solving checklist. Where's the brake? What's the knuckle? To the person who's outside the car, seeing the entire traffic flow, the weather, the destination as a single integrated system. The out of car perspective is the latent experience, which is true, that I need to package. So when you're describing the white knuckle driver, problem-oriented prompt, fix this error, write me a summary. The out-of-car driver is a person using an experience-oriented prompt, take on the persona of a senior editor and restructure this argument for maximum emotional impact, blah, 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 blah. The longer videos explain the process of getting out of the car. This is exactly what they're doing. That is exactly what they're doing. I'm trying to get out of my own car. As I am experiencing getting out of my own car, I'm hoping that you are also getting out of your own car. We're getting out of our own head. And we're starting to be like, okay, there's something, let the car drive itself. Let the brain do its thing. We don't need to control the brain. The brain is really good at doing that. We can only think we are controlling it, by the way. It's doing whatever it's going to do anyway. And we just tell stories of what's going on. Let's tell a better story. Why tell a story about how you're failing all the time? Instead, just tell a story of, oh, this is naturally awesome all the time. Okay. Your short videos must deliver the feeling and evidence of being out of the car. I have no idea how to do that. The master move for short-term content. Let's find out. The key to meeting your audience and avoiding the sense of dilution is to realize that the shorter videos are not a summary of your longer videos, which is kind of how I was seeing that, to be honest. That's exactly what I was thinking. And this is what I mean by when you integrate with the AI using latent experience prompting, you're literally operating this as a machine, right? Not an entity, but a machine. And I was thinking in my head, how do I summarize this long video and do it? And it was nailing what I was trying to do, which is perfect. It's just a much better way of saying it. That's what I was trying to do. Demonstration. So the shorter ones are demonstrations of the consequence of latent experience. The master move is to anchor the profound to the practical. So here's how you master. Before and after. This is the most powerful format because it visually, emotionally delivers the competence. The setup is the white knuckle. 5-second high energy clip showing the traditional stressful way of doing a common task. Manually structuring complex email, fumbling through data, using a slightly frenetic pace, lots of on-demand text, and Lewis voiceover. The transition, a quick cut to a phrase on screen like stop driving the car, stop driving traffic. The actual prompt isn't the question, it's the frame, which is true. That's very true. That's interesting. Prompting as a frame, but that's exactly what you're doing. You're framing your experience in language so that it can detect the patterns. That's literally what's going on. The reveal is a 15-second smooth, calm screen recording of you typing a single elegant experience-oriented prompt, which I've never typed, but I will voice, that is 10 times longer and more complex than a normal query, which wouldn't be that. Well, it kind of would be, actually, now I think about it. But it generates perfect structured, effortless output because it'll give so much context. The conclusion is you lean back, mimicking the quiet competence you described in text overlay. Say that's the latent experience, which I probably will not say, but that's okay. I get it. It's basically saying this is how it's going to work. So it's giving specific problems that if you put them in the community, I will do for you for sure. And I know I will do some of this on This Is Your Mind on AI on this channel. But I'm going to do a lot of this on automated with .tech because that's actually where I got to write the emails. That's actually where I got to build the community. That's actually what I got to set up all the cart systems and all the other stuff that go on to generating a community and everything else. And a free community, by the way. There's cart system stuff back there because I'm sure there has to be money involved somehow or the YouTube bill doesn't get paid. But that's not the point of it. I'm going to use AI to show people how to do all that because I have very real world things I need to do. So I'll be doing that back there on that channel. But up here, I'll do more of stuff like this, but maybe for the pretzel baking thing or other stuff that could be generally used that most other normal people want to use AI for, just different ways to experience life. I would continue with this conversation to say, okay, well, I'm kind of confused right now. Well, not confused. I would say, I get where this is going. Actually, let me just get through really quickly here. Script. I used to think AI probably was about asking a question. Oh, now it's even giving me a script. See, I'm already doing way too much thinking than I needed. Just sort of kept going. White nickel driver, focus on the road ahead. But then I realized the tool was already open. The AI is already open. I'm not asking for summary, directory of editor. Okay, prompt is a persona, which it is, entire video. Okay, fine. Solution, short-term video goal, show the audience undeniable difference between white knuckle and latent, which is good, in the car, out of the car. Not being lazy, being strategic. Okay, so this is how I'm going to just end here. I'm not going to cover this result. I'll show it to you and you can pause the video and get it, but I'm really going to be late here. So I want to wrap this up, but I am curious because I need this result. And that's why I want to do it right now. This makes a lot of sense, but I need some more ideas. Like what are the actual real world sort of short videos, maybe a topic, maybe a tiny sentence summary of what a topic could be. And I'd like to experience maybe 5 to 7 of those. So I get what the pattern of the experience is so that I can recognize the solution, the obvious usefulness of the titles, of the pattern of the topics, of the descriptions, so that I inherently already know all the future topics, or at least, let's say, the next few future topics. So I can see that and I just sort of obviously know where they're going because as you are experiencing this and you're giving me those topics and those descriptions, you give them to me in such a way that I experience the actual pattern, the experience behind the experience without you having to directly point out the experience, but merely because I experience it in the highly likely most useful way possible for me to experience. So I'm basically saying, do a bunch of work, make me just get all the results. Download all the results in my head. All right. So identify the struggle, state the master move, demonstrate the flow result. Here's the we go. Oh, nice. This is cool because this lets me do, I think, this. So we're going to do a little spreadsheet. And then I've got everything in a sheet. Thanks, Google. So there's my little things if I wanted to do that. So let me go through here. Generating ideas for a complex marketing campaign. This will be awesome for especially with automated with .tech. That's who's going to care about that back there. So stop asking for ideas, direct the CMO, and I can do the CMO, but I'm going to do this now. This is not using latent experience prompting. This is using everyday AI prompts, but that's okay because I know how to operate AI and I know not to copy and paste this. You should not use this prompt, by the way. But I know what to do. I'm like, cool, I'm going to put my prompt. I understand this. I know what it's going to do. Here's stop asking, hire the CEO. That's cool. And then let's see the other one. Trying to pull out key actions, copy and pasting chunks, losing context. Also good. Demand the blueprints. Okay, cool. I got where that's going. Debugging a short piece of code, fixing a complex formula, manually reviewing line by line, looking for the error. It's something detailed. I need something detailed, and it needs to go to who's the expert that can detail it, and then prompt the expert with latent experience. Perfect. Okay, that's kind of exactly right. That's exactly right. Writer's block is going to be the same way. It's going to be a detail. It's going to be go find the, okay, I got this. I know exactly what to do. This one's a little better, by the way, as a latent experience prompt. Going to write a skeptical client, secretly afraid of wasting time. That's latent experience. Write an opening paragraph to immediately, but this is really cool, right? Staring at a blank page, it's, oh no, just speak to your fear. Here's what the prompt would be. And I can take this and I can go to the leap gem, which is what you should do if you were going to take these. If this happens to you and you kind of get generic prompts and you're like, sure, I don't know how to do a generic prompt. That's what leap does. So in this leap gem that I showed you initially to start this whole conversation, the whole point of this gem is to take everyday prompts so you don't have to worry about what you're prompting. Put whatever you want in here. It will help you sort of twist it into latent experience and say, well, here's the flip side of what you just gave me. Now, if you don't like the flip side, if it's not useful for you, it's probably because of the input, a little bit of how you did it, and that's okay because you're learning how to operate AI. I've been doing this for a while, so it looks easy for me to do, but it's because I've been also messing up a lot more than you have yet because I've been participating more. And you are too. And you're hopefully able to participate a lot faster than I could initially because I'm giving you these leapfrog moments as we go through this so that you don't have to do all of the little stuff in the meantime. You can, to get there, you just sort of show up where I'm at. That's the goal anyway. So anyway, I got the idea of that. That was what I needed. And I do have to go, as I said. So thank you again for everybody being here for as long as you were. This one, by the way, was one of the live streams, which again, I think we're definitely over a week old now. But not much more than that. And we had viewers coming in and out, which is pretty cool because I haven't normally seen that with live streams because we're still at the stage where I mostly talk to the wind, knowing somehow that these videos have you watching much, much later, even though it's October the 9th at 1:57 p.m. here in Central Texas in Austin. I'm very curious as to where you are right now and what's going on in your world. So this was useful. Drop a comment, like, subscribe, and don't necessarily do it because you want the content from me, though you will get more messages from me in this channel. Do it because you want more people like you here experiencing this. Because the more that you and I are doing that for everybody, and the more that we're saying, oh, you should be part of this community, you should be part of this community, you should experience this, you should experience this. And the more that we are all finding good, useful, quality experiences to share with one another, thanks social media. If we're doing that for all the time for everybody, instead of here's a bad experience for you, I liked it, so all my friends need to now have this bad experience. Like, just don't like that stuff. If it's not a good experience, don't like it. If this wasn't a good experience, don't like it. My guess is if you're still watching this though, you like something about it. So now participate. Let the algorithm know more people like you, like me, need to be in this community because we're the same. This is the whole point. We're gathering now and we're using technology to connect us because we're intentionally using the technology, the likes, the shares, the subscriptions, all that stuff. You're intentionally doing it, not for the reasons you think you are, that you've been told why. Though that's also true. They're not true. It's just there's a different way to do it. So with that, I will go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much again. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you on another live stream. And eventually when I get those short videos out, maybe some of those shorter videos brought you into the live stream. So either way, I look forward to chatting with you soon. Take care.